biggest failure of hip hop was that we did not act as a collective unit when hip hop became big, right? So the greatest way to take power away from anything is to fragment it, right? So if I could fragment a community, and if I could fragment anything, fragment a country, I'm going to take power away from it. So what happened was, my view is that if you, let's just think about it as you had this incredible raw material, hip hop. Let's just say we would say it's indigenously just owned by
vibranium.
Yeah, it's like vibranium. It's like almost like Black Panther. When you look at that, it was a metaphor for it, right? Yeah. But we didn't keep it under our control. So imagine we had the Hip Hop Council and said, anything you want to do in hip hop, you got to come through us. So when you look at and if we did that, the values you could have started asking for because you controlled it, right? And this is the only place you could get it. As soon as it started fragmenting out, it's like, I could run over here and get this one and pay them $1 million and I could get it and get some of that. I could split this one off and 10 million is going to sound like a lot, but I'm making billions and I could get it here. So fragmenting hip hop was something, looking back, that as, if you want to think about, we talk about own your value, and we've been talking about the same stuff, honestly, for so long. And we have to say, we just botched it up. But we do have an opportunity, I think, going forward to fix it. I'm going to get to that. It's also one of the reasons I brought my son here, who's working on something right now that we'll talk about. So the bottom line is that, and at that time, why did we give up ownership and rights? See, at that time, the way music was distributed was really trucks and warehouses. So why do I need a label? I need a label to get product into the stores. I need a label to spend the money to promote the product. I need a label to spend the money to make the videos, right? I need a label to help market to the ultimate consumers, right? So that's why I go to label. Otherwise, I wouldn't need a label. All of those reasons why we used to have to go to labels are no longer necessary parts of the process.
As you're saying it, I'm checking off like, they don't have that
checks
anymore.
and warehouses, don't care about that anymore. I can get directly to my consumer, right? So why do I need a label to help me get to my consumers? Why do I need video cost? I'm from the days where we would spend over $1 million on a video. Video costs are nothing, right? So we have now gotten to a space where even if that was, we shouldn't have made that decision anyway, but, all of the factors that led us to making that decision to give up, really, we gave up what we call in the business schools of the world, we gave up so much of the value chain, right? That we gave up, all of we gave up so many parts of the profit that we were left with a little piece, and only some people were left with a little piece. And that's how we did it. So not only your masters, really ultimately, for the reasons of trucks and warehouses, all these things. And now when you say them, you're like, you gave me your masters just because of trucks and warehouses, But that's what we did. Means that now when you sit here right now and you look at, the hip hop music industry that created something from nothing, right? We are now moving back to a space where we have to figure out how do we go own what we basically mined, right? And created. So now we got to go back and figure out how do we own what we created? How do we have a Black Panther? I'm sorry, I'm getting, I'm getting amped up. Sorry. How do we have a Black Panther that does billions of dollars around the world? How much of that did the quote unquote hip hop community earn from that? That's all. They took everything. Every metaphor, every visual, everything in that movie was really a culmination. It's like, again, if I had the vibranium, or if I mined some kind of ore, and then all of a sudden you made this incredible statue out of that ore, and you sold it for $15 billion, and I was like, but wait, didn't I create that ore? And didn't that mine? And I got none of that? Huh? That's what we're looking at right now. So the future, and where we're replicating that mistake, if I may, is with social media. We're replicating that mistake with social media and big data media, right? Big data media is saying to you and I and all of us, and we're all falling into the trap, hey, this is all free for you. put this stuff up on YouTube and put this on here, and it's all free for you. I'm such a nice, kind person. I'm giving you this free search. Google, search is free. Come on in, search. Tell me everything about your lives. But what we're giving up, it's not free. What we're giving up is all of our data, which they're then going and parlaying into, again, billions of dollars of value and billions of dollars of income on our data. There's some stat which is about 30% of the activity on Twitter are from African Americans and minorities. Yeah. So that whole valuation of Twitter is driven by that activity, because all of that data is what's feeding advertisers, which feeding all of their value in their propositions. So we have recreated, I think, this sacrificing value for somebody else in that space. Now, the good news. The good news is that the world is going to move away from big data. I mean, as we have this, if there's anything we can get out of this episode, just to know that what you think is free is not free. Google is not free to you. Facebook is not free to you. YouTube is not free to you, especially if you're creating dope content like this. Right now, imagine a world, though, where we could get this content directly to your listeners without any go-between. That's where the world is going. The world is going to this phone and the text messaging space. Everything Facebook is investing in right now is regarding text, because I'm going to be able to create my own audiences and text directly to them. I don't need Google, Facebook, etc. If I have my audience created and I can reach them all directly via their phones, then I don't need to give up all that I'm giving up to these big data companies in order to reach my audience. I can reach them effectively. They don't have to give up their information to come get to hear this show, and I don't have to give up my viewers that I've created and built. Here's the biggest kicker about it's almost like it's the real kick in the face that a lot of people don't even get. So you guys have, I looked at it, incredible growth, 60,000 followers on Instagram. Mm-hmm. When you send out a tweet, a picture or whatever, you're getting hit with the algorithm. So you may send out, like we may send out a picture of this podcast, and of your 60,000 followers, maybe 500 even get it, even see it. So you've taken time to build this audience that you can't even, they will dictate how many of them you can reach. Versus imagine if you built this audience directly on text. I can't give away my son's whole business plan. But if we could, the bottom line is that we could cut out the middle people that are taking all the value and building this tremendous wealth and valuation and go direct, we can really create value and own our own content.
All right, so now we're going to go into the next segment of business. But before we do, just to double back. So as far as ownership of masters, how can somebody own their masters?
How can somebody own their masters? One is you never give them up, right? So you create your own music and you just distribute it on your own, and you've never done a deal with somebody which says you own my masters. Master ownership is really about, at some point you had to give it up. You had to say to somebody, I'm going to take X, thousands of dollars, millions of dollars, whatever, and you in turn take the ownership of my masters. So one is to never give it up, right? The second is, the only other way is to buy it back, right? So if you've given it up in the past, maybe the company doesn't value it as much as you do, you can then buy it back. But I would say the way to go forward is to not give it up.
I never really thought about that, but that makes a lot of sense, because like I said, somebody DM'd me and they was like, well, how can I own my masters? Never sell it.
Never sell it.
I guess you own your masters.
Right. You own them right now.
Right now you own them.
Right.
Yeah. We saw some, Rihanna bought hers back, and I think Russell Wilson just bought Ciara's masters back. But yeah, don't give it up.
Yeah.
It's yours.
Right.
Yeah, the things that we're giving it to, and think about what you're giving it up for. You may be giving it up for $20,000, I don't know, $30,000, whatever the numbers are, right? And that's where, again, when we talk about what the missed opportunity was, if we had this community, right, that was building wealth, and we were like, hey, you know what? We're going to sow into our next generation of creatives and create a platform for them where they don't have to give up their masters and they can thrive and shine and earn. This is, again, it's very much thinking about the greater good of the community, but we don't have that opportunity because these are public companies, that own this, and they're trying to do what the right thing for their shareholders, which is to own these masters as long as they can own them and make money from them as long as they can.
Yeah, they're taking advantage of people who come from nothing. So if you dangle $2 million and I have nothing, $2 million seems like $2 billion.
Yes, and by the way, that is what Steve Stout is doing. He's on our board at Robinhood, so that's been a great thing. We just added him this year. And what he's doing is saying, don't give up your masters. You can own your own masters. We'll come in, we'll help market you, and we'll help get you on all the platforms, but you'll have an opportunity to own your own masters.
And shout out to Stout. The commissioner, Steve Stout.
Shout out to Steve Stout. We gotta get him up. We gotta get him on the show, for sure.
Absolutely.
If anybody's a loyal listener, our first episodes, the first 6 episodes, we had a segment called Storytime. We was breaking down business deals and stuff like that, right? Mm-hmm. We haven't done that in a while because we had guests, and the guests is kind of hard to do that. But we're not going to do a story time, but we're going to keep in line with our original premise of how we used to do the show and kind of break down deals and talk about different stuff. But we're going to do it from a unique perspective. So once again, Diddy, a legend, business legend, hip hop legend, all of that stuff, right? So you worked with Diddy firsthand for years, right? So you know him just as good as anybody knows him, especially when it comes to business. So on the financial side, we're going to talk about a couple deals that he made, but can you just talk about his business philosophy and how he's been able to leverage his star power and things of that nature?
Sean Combs is a great entrepreneur. He is probably will go down in history as one of the greatest entrepreneurs in American history from my standpoint. Mm-hmm. And he's a great entrepreneur. First, a lot of people don't know, he started as a businessman. People know him as an artist and a fashion icon and so on and so forth, but his first role in the entertainment business was as an owner, first as an A&R, at Uptown Records, but then, ultimately as an owner of Bad Boy Records. He was not an artist when he first owned Bad Boy Records. Yeah. So from there, where he took that company alone as an entrepreneur was incredible and would go down in history in and of itself. But then one of the things I say I was really super fortunate to experience, and this is something that, is part of the American dream experience, is to see businesses go from an idea, from sketches on a table, to a real business with hundreds of employees, with hundreds of $1 million in sales, and not just once. I started 3-4 times over. Mm-hmm. Literally things being sketched out. We're gonna do this, how the clothes gonna look, what's the TV network gonna look like, what are the segments we want, on a 24-hour day, what's that gonna look like? Going from that, from an idea to actually happening. And that's a phenomenal, incredible thing, really difficult to do. And to do it, 3 or 4 times over in a big way Sean Combs did is really unprecedented, and
we're not talking a huge time frame. We're talking 20 years. He's done this 4 times.
Absolutely, he's still got more to come too, right? Yeah. So these are the years where most executives are really just getting in the groove and creating great ideas. So here's what. So I will say he is rarefied air as an entrepreneur. So you have to understand that first. So it's not by accident. It's not, luck. It's, he has great instincts. He has great instincts. He has great negotiating instincts. He has great instincts of the marketplace, right? So essentially what Puff purposefully created was a whole new category, which, I call and we call urban aspirational. That category really didn't exist, right? So, and off of that category, if you really think about everything he created, so it started with the music, and everybody would talk about the shiny suits, this, that, and the other, but he showed you lifestyle that no one ever thought about it, other than in a comedic way, showing, for the hip-hop community. He showed you private jet lifestyle, jet ski lifestyle, and it all was purposeful about this narrative around, we can aspire to these great things. Sean John was totally about aspirations. It was I want clothes that feel like you're rich, that you're wearing. I want, at this time he had felt, Gucci and all these other brand names on him. And he's I want Sean John to feel like that on the consumer. And I wanted to fit them right, and they're going to feel like, $1 million when they put it on. So he created a whole category. Once again, just a rare thing for anybody to do. And he parlayed that category into different consumer products groups, from clothing to then spirits, to even how he approached his television work, and and many other different consumer products categories that he got involved in, including water and other things. So
Aquahydrate.
So that's right. We're on camera, so you can see it. But a couple of things I would say. This is really, I think, unique about someone like myself working with him. I'm there to be the analytical person and to do everything I learned, right? It's like do valuation models. And for all of my fellow MBAs and so on, like when you get around someone like a Sean Combs or Sean Carter or whatever, don't think you have to lose the skill set that you're supposed to be bringing to the table. In fact, trust that skill set, because it's really important, and it's important for you to bring that to the table. But I would say what I learned is that there is something important about instinct. There is something important about celebrity, and there is something important about knowing your value and being able to walk away from a deal. So I would say one of the great things that Sean was able to always do in almost any deal I was involved in him with is I would set the range and say, okay, we're going to the room. If we get this deal to around this level, if we get it to like 15 million, that's a really good deal. We really should do it, right? Mm-hmm. If it's below that, we maybe we want to keep negotiating, whatever. So many a times I've been in the room and we get to the 15 and I'm smiling, I'm happy, like smiling on the inside, and he'll look at him like, yeah, all right, well, I don't think we're going to have a deal today. Y'all just don't really know my value. Thanks very much. I'll talk to you later. I'm like kicking him, like, what are you doing? We got to our number, you know what I mean? But he was like, I could look in their eyes and know they wanted to do more. You know what I mean? I know they're not leaving here without doing this deal. But like I said, everyone's not an entrepreneur. That takes guts. And to walk away from some of the numbers we would walk away from and say no to, that he would walk away from and say no to, takes a lot of guts and belief in yourself. And that was part of how he approached deals. He never went into a deal like, I gotta have this deal. He never went into anything with desperation. And some of that is about planning. So anything you saw Sean Combs and Bad Boy do, it had been in the works for years. I wasn't involved in anything that didn't take 12 to 24 months. It had been in the work for years. So none of these are like knee-jerk. Like, one of the bad places to be as an athlete or an entertainer is where you have to make decisions to survive, right? Survival decisions versus you've mapped out a course. Like, Sean was very strategic about, when am I going to be in the spirits business? I know I'm going to be there at a certain point, but I want to build my brand of celebration, and I want to build my brand of aspiration enough so that when I get to the spirits business, I can create a brand that sits at a certain price point, that stands for a certain thing, and that will be presented the right way. So these things were orchestrated, years in advance before we got into the businesses. And then negotiating the deals, to negotiate the deal you really want sometimes takes a long time.